teachers here. That's why you got the standing O for the raising our salaries. We appreciate that. What would you plan to do with No Child Left Behind?
Well, let me amplify on what I said earlier. I believe in high standards. We have to have high standards for our children because we are now competing against kids in India, China, and Eastern Europe. The competition globally is fierce. So the days where the average young person could just get a high school degree and then go find a job at a factory, those days are over. At least if you want a living wage. So we've got to have high standards, especially around math and science, where we are lagging way behind most other industrialized countries. But here's the thing. I don't want those standards just measured by a single high-stakes standardized test, because what's happened is a couple of things are wrong with it. Number one, this test does not take into account growth during the course of the year. So if a child is coming into the school 2 years behind, and they end the school year only 1 year behind, that school's done a good job. But under No Child Left Behind, that school is still labeled a failure and potentially punished. That's point number one. Point number two, I think there's room for taking a standardized test as a tool to identify children who need more help. But the way this is structured, the test doesn't even come at the beginning of the school year. You're testing for what they learned last year, which means that it is not a tool that teachers can use to actually improve instruction. That's the second thing. The third thing is, because it's administered sort of a third of the way into the year, the teachers end up spending a whole bunch of time teaching to the test because they're worried about the performance and the ramifications it could have for the school. And that means not only are the teachers uninspired, but the students are uninspired. Because if you want to teach a child to read, give them some subject matter that they're really interested in, not a test or a bunch of multiple choice questions. If you want to teach a kid math, make it relevant to their lives and show them how, if you figure out math, you can be a good businessman and make a lot of money. Kids, I'm discovering my 9-year-old and 6-year-old, kids really are interested in money. They understand that whole concept that I have more money and I can buy stuff. So there are ways of making math interesting. Science. There are ways of getting kids out of the classroom and having them focus on the environment and having them focus on agriculture in an agricultural state like Indiana. But if you're just teaching the test, you can't use those creative ways of helping people learn. So what I want to do is I want to change the assessment process under No Child Left Behind and use a multiple series of ways of judging school performance, not just a single standardized test. I want to eliminate some of the testing so that it's not just constant testing all the time. And I want to make sure that we're getting more resources into the schools, because don't ask school districts to do more with less. Give them more and then demand more of them. Can I make one last point though? Can I make one last point? One last point, and that is this. If we want to improve our schools, you can't just ask teachers to do it. Parents have a role too. Turn off the TV set. You have to put away the video games. You have to have a certain hour when your child goes to bed. You have to give them breakfast in the morning. You have to instill in them a sense of excellence. If they come home with a B, don't say, "Oh, isn't that wonderful?" Tell them, "Why didn't you get an A?" There's just a sense, that we are not, giving our children the kind of encouragement, support, demanding excellence, creating structures where they can perform. We're not doing enough of that. And so don't just keep on blaming the schools. And that is true particularly, by the way, in some minority communities. Let me just make one last point about this, because I hear too many stories. If your child is misbehaving in school, don't curse out the teacher.